Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is the city commission work session meeting, Thursday, May 27th at 4 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Mayor Litchfield.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem DePlantis.
Here.
Commissioner Moya.
Here.
Commissioner Villarreal.
Here.
Commissioner Arias.
Okay, under discussion items, the first thing on the agenda is discussion regarding the budget, fiscal year 2022.
Thanks, Mayor. So it's last minute, unfortunately. Budget's due to DFA. The interim budget is due to DFA by Tuesday, so I have to have it in by Monday. So we could talk about some things, and then it's not the final budget, so we can always come back and make changes after.
Yeah.
So I have my final budget's not due till July 31st. So, but just to give you guys some information, and what I think we could do is make a decision on how to submit the budget for right now, and then plan to meet several times between June and July to get a good final budget of where we want to be. So the first thing that I have is I did a fiscal year 21 projection, and this is for the cash for the ending, what I'm projecting to be the ending cash balances for each of the funds. I think, Commissioner Moy, I think you're gonna like this sheet, because on all my other reports, like for DFA, they break them down a little bit differently. And so it's hard to tell which fund and which department. This one is exactly by each department that we have, okay? So the very first column is our estimated beginning cash balance. That is what we started the fiscal year off with, and that's what was approved by DFA. You probably want to go to page 2, Mayor, because that first page kind of consolidates them. But so the first column, again, is our estimated beginning cash balance, but that's what was approved by DFA. And then we have our actual fund revenues, and again, that's projecting what we're gonna end the year with. We have our operating transfer in the middle, and those always have to total to 0.
I'm having trouble here, because I got page 1 of 1, I flip it over, and it says page 1 of 3, and I flip it over, and it says 3 of 3. And
Go
then
back
2 of 3.
flip one over, no, the whole thing, flip it over. Now, go 1, and that's your page 2. That's the page we're on right there.
Oh, because it says, mine says 1 of 3.
Where does it say 1 of 3?
At the bottom?
Yeah, in the bottom line does. 1 of 3, and then you'll see when the second one says 2.
Mine doesn't say that.
Mine doesn't say, oh, I see it, yeah, so 1 of 3, that's the right page, yeah. So page 1, sorry.
Okay.
And then in column K, we have the actual fund expenditures, and again, projecting what our expenditures are gonna be. And then the change in funds. So everything in red is considered to be a negative, but expenditures are considered negative for our accounting. And our revenues, or anything in black, is considered positive. And then at the very end in column L, we have the estimating ending fund cash balance. So I am projecting that general fund, we started off with $1,858,047, and I'm projecting that we're going to end with $2,338,090. That's before our required reserves that we have to have per the state, which is 112. So in my budget numbers that I'm going to hand out in just a second, I'm concentrating only on general fund departments and the departments that they supplement, because every other department has their own cash, and every other department is doing amazing. So I just really want to concentrate on those, because that's the one that affects us the most, is the general fund. And if you look on page 3, then 3 of 3, Commissioner Moya, the very last page.
Okay, 3 of 3.
3 of 3. So at the very bottom has available cash, or underneath that highlighted available cash, it says 11,086,241. That's what I'm projecting overall for all departments. That would be the total for everybody all together. If you see it down at the bottom, under the yellow,
11 million,
11 million. But that's including,
available
All
cash is 3
departments.
million?
no, I'm not sure what that's there. Dennis had that in there, so I just left it alone. But 11 million is what our overall ending cash will be for all departments together. Okay, so I'm gonna hand out this beginning. Go there, sorry.
That's okay. I can reach it.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, this one here, what I did on this one is I have our original budget, which was what we had this fiscal year, and I have a projected budget, which I pretty much went in with a flat budget, but putting in the increase for minimum wage of $11.50.
When is that going up there?
January 1st.
Have you prorated that?
I do not prorate it, and the reason why I don't is because then it gives us a little bit of a cushion in case something happens. It's a little cushioning for us. So I did
What page are we on?
oh, I'm sorry.
On this one. Okay, thank you.
We, the only thing that's increased from this budget year to the next one would be the increase for the property insurances, the vehicle insurances. And also the increase on the insurances, the medical insurances for our staff. There's an increase on that. And other than that, everything is pretty much the same. I did reduce some of our revenues that could be, we could be short on, or we won't be getting at all. Like, for example, the interest rate, we know that the interest rates are gonna go down after our contract is up in, what did I say, September? It goes September, so we'll be going down to whatever that rate is at that point.
I'm gonna be honest, it's really super gonna drop,
I know.
because the school just dropped, I think they had to get a different bank.
Oh, I heard they were still with them. I just met with Garrett yesterday, and he said the schools were still with them.
Not really, I don't think so, because I think they dropped to 17.2.
But that's like the federal rate right now also, so.
Yeah, so it went down, so the deal is that,
Because all banks are gonna be offering the same rate.
no, I understand that, but we better be prepared for that, because
Yeah.
we were enjoying a little cushion.
We were enjoying it, so, I did take it down, because, we budgeted originally 30,000, and I believe we're at 86,000 or something right now. So I took it down to 25, I could even possibly take it down more. They were gonna give me some numbers, I asked for some numbers,
So
so
our contract ends when?
I believe September.
We got a couple of days.
So if you will go to I'll tell you, page 14 on that budget report. You good? Okay. So on page 14 in the middle, I have general fund surplus deficit. So for general fund in this fiscal year, we started in a deficit of 447,892. Again, just putting in the increase for the insurances, the medical insurance, and the minimum wage, we would be in a deficit of 634,394. And then if we take off our possible beginning cash, the 2,055,000, that would leave us estimated ending cash at 1.4 million. And again, I only put the departments on this report that general fund, it's either general fund or the departments that they supplement. So EMS, recreation, dispatch, seniors, gas tax.
PD.
So that's in general fund, so dispatch. And over in our internal service departments, I put those on there. So that's kind of what we're looking at with just the minimum wage. Is the deficit of
You said dispatch?
dispatches.
Let me ask you a question, I was looking at your ambulance thing, am I reading it right, 763,000?
The revenue?
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
it's gone up.
Yeah, it used to be 300 and almost more. Wow.
If you see, I bumped them up to 650,000 from 600,000 from this year because they've already, I believe they've already exceeded that number with their
It
billing.
really looks good.
Yes, they've been doing really good. That billing company is really on it. They're on it now with their billing, so they're doing really good.
And that's why I couldn't figure out why they weren't making money, especially with Medicaid, you know? And private companies were doing okay.
Right.
They're doing good, and kudos to Casey doing a
Yeah.
good job with it, make sure they get the
Kudos to
reports
Casey.
in, and then same thing with the new building company, they've been doing well.
Yes.
Well, that was a big deficit for our budget, so a little money here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still,
Potholes.
well, don't get too excited yet because we still have to contribute almost 424,000 to the ambulance. So it's still quite a big chunk of change, but they are an essential service.
Right.
We need them.
No, I
So-
understand. I understand. But we never did discuss with the county about a possible partnership on the unincorporated part of Tippecanoe.
So I've been having conversations with the new city manager,
City manager?
or excuse me, county manager. It's been a
So we had a
long
city
week,
manager.
long
We
week.
didn't know about it.
Nothing's guaranteed, of course, but we're looking at the possibility, see if they could help us at least with funding for a new ambulance. They have the same American Rescue Plan funding that we do. If it's an eligible expense, if their commission would approve it, at least I've started those conversations to see if they could help us out, considering we do run throughout the whole county, so.
Yes, we do, but the most important factor is that we do the unincorporated area. Is there any way they would be happy to help with half of the deficit they're gonna have?
That's a tall ask. We could definitely continue those conversations, but new ambulances start at a minimum of about $200,000
I
in
know
that center.
that, I see the bills, yeah.
But yeah, we could definitely talk to them about it, if they'd be picking.
And how much can we utilize the engine funds?
So we've talked about that. I don't believe we're able to do that. That has to come
The
from.
way their application reads, it's the patient themselves has to apply for that.
Yeah, but maybe we need to look into it, and it might be cheaper just to hire somebody to help out. Because remember, that comes back to us at 3% if interest, 3%.
Yes,
So,
unless we can maybe, again, with the talks with the county manager, see if there's a way that they can redo the application to where we could apply for those. For the ones that doesn't
their
have any
argument
insurance.
Before, when we went to them and said, hey, y'all are wanting X amount of dollars for us to contribute to the detention center, but y'all only wanna do, I think it was 25,000 at the time. And their response was, well, there's an indigent fund, but we can't, if the individual doesn't apply for it, then it doesn't benefit us any.
no, but
We're still covered.
what I'm saying is maybe we could have somebody in City Hall that would help, because every run, it's almost $200-300. I mean,
I believe so, yes.
and actually, if I don't have any money, the county pays maybe 200, but that's still, it's instead
Better
of
than
writing it
nothing.
off,
Mhm.
then we can add it on to here, and that might reduce that 400,000. Because this is an enterprise that can actually make their own money. I know they're having difficulty in transport, and maybe with a new ambulance, because they make good money on transport. And maybe with a new ambulance, we could do a little more transport, and just to balance that big deficit.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
This has been
That's
a
what it's
crazy
about.
amount for a long time, and it's beginning to look a little better.
No, it's what we're here to talk about. And then, there's the recreation contributing $209,000. And contributing, 115 now to gas tax. So I want to talk about this again because I don't think that a lot of citizens quite understand. I know everybody's upset about the potholes. I get it. So our gas tax is from the gas revenue. We get a certain percent of tax off of that.
Mhm.
This year, we budgeted 160,000 and 110,000. So we get one for municipal and then one's called a road fund, so they're together. I had to cut down their revenue to 120,000 and 100,000 because we are not getting, when the gas prices are low, gas tax is low. So while the gas taxes prices were low, we weren't getting the revenue. So without that, and also this fund also, so it's been set up to pay salaries for the street department. It pays the street lights, some of them, and so the street lights themselves were $50,000. And then they have a street maintenance budget of $35,000. We all know $35,000 isn't gonna repair a whole street. So they use that money and they buy their asphalt to fill in the potholes.
Parts for the pothole machine?
Huh?
Parts for the pothole machine?
Parts for the
Actually-
pothole machine, yes.
Let's see what we got. Anyway, so actually what we need to do is set up a really good meeting with Senator Campos. He has a real super good relationship with the highway department. They really like him because he goes to bat for them. Either we can go meet with him in the highway department or whatever. And I think we need to open that communication line. If he seems to help other communities, that's fine, no?
That sounds like a good idea to me also.
Because the more revenue of any kind we bring in, the less is taken out of our general fund.
Right.
And the more we're able to provide to our citizens, and that's the key thing, is to think smart, not just say, whatever, we can't do anything about it, let's see what we can do about it.
And Commissioner Moore, at tonight's meeting, we actually, Ralph Lopez will give an update. We're applying for $1 million
Yeah, so
of funding through NMDOT.
Yeah.
The bad part is it can't go towards equipment, it can't go towards just millings or materials. It has to be a designated project in a specific area, so we're trying to do what we can. And we'll go into more of that in tonight's meeting.
Well, actually, and one of the reasons the gas tax is down too was the fact we had coronavirus, people weren't traveling. And that hindered, because the motels, everybody was short on rooms. Okay.
And then on dispatch, we're on page 17 towards the bottom.
Oh, because I was looking at the budget. Sorry.
That's this fiscal year, originally we had budgeted to only transfer over $6,000. We paid 45% of the dispatch
Okay.
budget.
Mhm.
And this year we have to contribute, almost 32,000. So,
So let me go into a little detail to that.
yeah, go ahead.
So, with everything going on, with minimum wage going up, the county's trying to stay proactive, and they figured it was cheaper. They worked out the calculations. They're gonna give everybody a percentage raise. Unfortunately, it was cheaper for them to do $1 across the board, since the dispatch is underneath the county. They also receive a raise. So the unfortunate part is, like Rochelle was saying, we contribute 45%, the county contributes 45% for dispatch, and then the other local, smaller entities contribute the remaining 10%. With that being said, the overall budget went up substantially. So we have to have dispatch. We pay 45% because our fire and EMS and police departments take up the majority of those calls. They break it down by call volume. And this is something that I think we need to be aware of and look to in the future as we talk about budget. We're going to be faced with the same thing. We need to be proactive and come up with a solution to retain our employees, because right now we are going to come into that compression phase where January 1 of 2022, we move up to 1150, and we have people that have been with the city 3-4 years. They have certifications. To me, it's not fair. Somebody just say being a driver is making the same money or pretty close to it of someone that's certified as a CDL. Somebody that's certified as a basic EMT that's expected to save people's lives. Anybody that carries a certificate that has to for their job, they should not be making minimum wage. And we got to figure out what's ultimately necessary for the city to continue our services, and where can we, I know it's hard, it's not the easy thing, and I care about our employees, but where can we make some cuts as needed to make sure those that we do have here are paid the way they should be? If not, we're not going to be able to retain any employees. They'll leave to go to county and staff, and they'll go to McDonald's. They could make $15 an hour, and they don't have to have the stress of maintaining a certification. So that's something to keep on the back of our minds, that we really need to be proactive and try to get to the closest to a zero budget that we can, as well as continue to provide the services that are ultimately essential.
Can I ask something? On that 32,000 going to the dispatch, how much of that is in kind? Because they're in our property. We used to.
We charge them for rent.
We charge them.
We charge them rent and a portion of the light bill.
Okay. I have a breakdown of their overall budget if you want to see what it contributes to, but it's everything from salaries to.
I would like to, not necessarily see their budget breakdown, but I'd like to see their distribution, where they're, what organizations are paying what. I know they have that, but I think it's important that we also know if we're paying 45%, the city's paying, or the county's paying 45%. I would like to see how much is going to these other places, or how much they're asking of these other places. Because in my opinion, there's times we send people out, we send the ambulance to Conscious quite a bit. That's in a different county.
So they also contribute. That's minimal though compared to the call volume. They've compared it now that they have the new dispatch software where they could track that. And ultimately they wanted to, we amended the JPA. It stood the same as far as the share, 45% for the county and the city. If they would have went off of call volume for this most recent year because of COVID, we would have ended up losing. We would have had to pay a larger contribution because our call volume was up. And it was up across the board. There's not enough data since it is a newer software. We like to see 3 to 5 years projections instead of just 1 or 2 years. So realistically, it was a fair, 45% is fair. It's just unfortunately prices are going up. Technology changes, that's been expensive. They've had to contract with Plateau Fusion as we have. And that's what's going that, and then salaries. That was a big hit where everybody got a $1 raise at dispatch. And to me, that's why I'm kind of trying to plead with our commission that we need to do the same for our employees to a certain extent, because it's kind of sad that we're paying for the county's raises, but we can't afford to pay for our own employees.
Well, actually, if you look at it, our budget is getting a little better, so that's something that is no prior. Sometimes if we don't have it in the budget, there's nothing we can do. But if you're looking at it, at 32,000, that's our overall money that we're contributing to the dispatcher. Actually, we couldn't even afford to hire one person or have somebody trying to do 2 jobs at the PD. So, and it's also coordinated very well countywide. So it's a good service.
And they only fall under the county fiscally.
Yeah.
They're actually a separate entity altogether.
Correct.
That's correct.
And then, so the next one is the airport. So the airport, because of COVID, the budget's been pretty much steady. We contributed almost 57,000 to them this fiscal year. And next year it's gonna be 58,000. I cut back their sale of their fuels because they haven't had that much. And I also cut back the amount that they have purchased on their fuels. So there's not much change on the airport. And then of course the seniors is exactly the same, the 111, I believe. So it's the exact same amount, so that doesn't change. Yeah,
What is
111.
What's international revenue?
Inter-service revenues.
Oh,
So that's our HR,
Oh,
Or
okay, yeah, I know what it
mechanics,
is.
okay,
I
or
just
warehouse.
misread it. I was thinking airport one. I said, what the heck are we doing to that?
That's
I just
okay.
misread it, sorry.
That's okay. So, again, these are just the departments, the general fund and any department that the general fund supplements. And looking at a deficit of 634,394, and that's just with the minimum wage increase. And one more thing, Commissioner Moya, you asked for, I'm just gonna give you a copy of the budget for the debt. You asked for this the last time and I haven't gotten it to you. So, thank you. So you can see how much debt we have. The one in green is, let me see. So the convention center, as we know, is getting paid off this year. I paid off the drinking water loan because it was very minimal. So I paid that one off or no, I'm sorry, I paid off the one in yellow, that RIP 2001-3 loan, I paid that one off. Kind of in, kind of a standstill at that MFA right now. We're wanting to redo the tanks on 11th Street. But we're kind of already pledged out on our JRT because of all these loans. So I'm trying to see if there's another way that we could maybe pay off another loan that water has so that we can finance another one. But that was what you wanted to see. And that was all I have. What questions do you guys have? What do you think?
One question, when did you say that the convention center will be paid off?
This year, at the end of June. It comes out of,
It's on the executive side of it.
yes,
I had a nasty rumor come to me saying that we were already planning on refinancing it.
That's what I heard.
Well, if you got all that money, we're gonna have to.
The one thing that I've stated,
That we were gonna reinvest
we need to
our money
reinvest
back
into the
into
roof
it,
because
yes.
it's failing
Yes.
in sections.
It's a little
So
bit different.
the one thing I want to pump the brakes on is just because it's paid off doesn't mean that all goes out to be distributed to people.
Exactly.
We need to reinvest it into.
And update our stuff on it, yeah, and I agree, and that's what I explained. I told us, well, this is what I've heard discussed. I was like, there's nothing is coming out saying we're refinancing to do, and never saying we were gonna refinance to do exactly what we're talking about. I was like, there's no reason to refinance because then we gotta pay it. I was like, we can take what would have been the payment and refinance and everything. I say I'm gonna do that all the time when I pay something wrong. It doesn't happen that way, but that's what I say.
I didn't even know that had been brought up.
I didn't either. That's the first I heard of that.
Yeah, first time I ever heard. I know we do need roofing up there and some stuff down there.
Well, I looked in the restrooms, I'm gonna tell you, the restrooms do look really nice.
Oh, they finished it?
The restrooms are wonderful. I didn't sit in there or anything, I just looked in there because I heard they were done, but.
So restrooms are done and the updated Wi-Fi and the facility is good. To me, that's encouraging because we're losing out on revenue and renting out the back near Visa room because there was no internet before. Now it's fast, high speed throughout the entire convention center. So again, we're trying to improve things to make it a little bit more marketable.
And y'all did an upgrade on the kitchen, wasn't it?
So a little at a time.
Yes.
Just for the sake of not making it look too bad on the budget for this year, I'm pushing back and it has to go out to bid because it's a large amount. We're still planning on doing the floors. That's the next big improvement as well as the roof. That's what I intend to use the majority of the funds on the executive side now that it's going to be paid off in June. We have to reinvest into our structure. If not, it'll fail and we're going to pay twice as much in the future.
I agree.
Yes.
Well, actually, when you go to a convention, you wanna go to a nice place, you don't go to that.
Exactly.
Any other questions or anything regarding the budget?
So I have a question on the budget, and this has just been something I've been playing around in my head with. I'm not sure if it'd be more of a drop in the bucket or if it was something that would be some meaningful change. I believe out of the five of us, none of us are here for the money. We're here out of service to our community. So I was wondering what it would look like if we repealed the commission salary and be able to utilize, reinvest back into the employees with those funds.
So just so you know, Commissioner Arias, the commission's salaries, like, so for everything with the benefits and everything? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's 33,000.
That's not much.
That's not much.
But
And
that is one position.
That's one employee, that saves one
one,
employee's position.
yeah, it does. Mhm. So, and also talking about that, if we, like Mark was mentioning, trying to put everybody where they should be, at least some that have the certifications in our EMTs and those certain types. We would be looking, and I did mention this last year in the budget. Last year it was gonna be about 278,000 to put everybody back, because again, with minimum wage, we have compression. If my staff would be the way they were before, it would be affecting me this year. So right now we're looking at about 392,000 But that would be everybody overall, not just the certified position. So we can play with those numbers some more and then come back to the table. I don't really know where the commission wants to go.
What I'd like to see is, and as an exploring technique over the next few weeks, because you said we're gonna have to come back here and keep hammering some things out. The possibility of, and when I say consolidating jobs, hear me out, and I might use my business as an example. I can't afford to hire dishwashers, cooks, and servers and delivery drivers, but I can hire one person that can do a portion of each one.
Right.
And I'm right now, I don't know if I want to mention any particular jobs. I don't want everybody to freak out that I'm asking to take jobs away, but we might could possibly take somebody from one position that can be consolidated and move them to another position that can't be consolidated. You know, they're still working for the city. They're still, it doesn't affect their retirement, but, you know, say we go to the law enforcement, there's several jobs in there that can be consolidated within the law enforcement. You know, the job is to uphold the laws and the ordinances and that, to that effect, until we get through this rough patch. And I do think we're gonna get through this rough patch, that's something that should be considered. You know, somebody calls on a nuisance, you know, they gotta file a report anyway. And, you know,
To be honest with you, if you look at it, one position alone would be 57,000.
Yeah.
That you can eliminate and transfer into either another patrolman or something.
And, you know, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily saying taking that person out of a job, but, you know, there might be another spot that we can put that individual in, but take that position and consolidate. And like I said, I'm using these as an example for right now. I don't know a whole lot of, I know there's a lot of people that work for the city, but I don't know what jobs that I can think of that automatically can be a consolidated.
Well, there's
type job.
actually one you point that I can think of. The fact is that you can already have people that can do that work. You don't really have to have a designated person to do it, and that would save, like I said, $60,000 in one shot. So you have to look at this from a rational point, and I agree with Commissioner Duplantis, that we have to look at this, that the fact is that we need more patrolmen out on the road. You know, I'll be the first one to say.
No, especially going into April 1st.
Yeah, because I mean, the money will be coming in later if there is any type of taxes. So we have to get ourselves into that budget type of attitude. We also need to look at the fact is, if there's some grants that has been discontinued that we were not aware of, like the DUI grant, which are the other ones from that department?
CYD, step, buckle up, 100 nights, days and nights
Yeah,
of
and I
summer.
cannot believe that all this money went south without us being aware of it. This is something that irks me when we're trying to somehow or other make a budget, you know what I mean? And then we can't be pulling every dollar out of the backs of the residents, out of the general funds. We better prepare ourselves to a good law enforcement, plenty of guys out there, and all these grants help in one way or another, even if we have to subsidize it, but it helps because of the fact we have more bodies out there doing it. So we have to look and think of what's in the best interest of the community and what's in the best interest of the safety of those that live in this community.
I would like for us to at least, each one of us, go into a, you know, mentally explore. And that's the only way, you know, Mark, you mentioned this is a business and we're running a business. You know, if we can find a way that, one, save jobs, but do it by consolidation of other jobs, I think that could be a key to meeting our labor goals. I use that term.
Well, I've been looking at department's budget and I'd be surprised where you can be, just that I see that some of the services are redundant and it could be utilized otherwise.
So if you're looking at, and that was exactly why I provided this budget the way I did, because those are the ones that affect general fund. Because even though I say this huge dollar amount, not all of that's gonna affect general fund.
Yeah.
Some of it might affect water, which we don't contribute anything to water, they're their own entity. But these departments that are in here are the ones that probably need to be looked at as far as what can we do with these departments, or what do we need? What services do we have to have? And maybe build up from there. If you're so I don't know if you guys are wanting a balanced budget, are you wanting a zero budget? Are you okay with the deficit? That's what I
mean,
wanted
you
to
start off
know.
the fiscal year, you mean
Yes.
zero budget. Sometimes if you start with a zero budget, the best way to go,
Mhm.
because you have a better insight of what's happening.
We need to, if we continue starting in a deficit and we keep on tapping the cash, that well's gonna run dry eventually.
Very quick.
And we're hoping, so when we start in a deficit, we're hoping that that's not really gonna ever happen, that we're never gonna get there, and luckily we haven't. But there could come a year that we would, and we would end up with just 1.2 million in general fund, which to me is very concerning that it's pretty low for what I feel comfortable with.
And that's why we have these work sessions. I appreciate y'all's input. That's what we need to do. Like Rochelle said, ultimately, we know there has to be some kind of cuts. It's not an easy decision, but where do we start? I know I've already factored some things into the budget. As some positions became vacant throughout the year, we didn't fill them, and I have no intention of filling them. We are overstaffed in some places. We have been in the past, and in an effort to try to save jobs and work with people, as positions have become vacant, like I said, they're not going to be filled.
Well, and our goal always been to have a zero budget, have a zero balance. That's always been our goal.
Yeah, that's always been our
So
goal.
that's the best way to start. But
Right.
if you have a better understanding of what's coming, what's going, what's going, what's going.
So what I would like to see is we have another work session after sometime in June. And we can start with the essentials, which we know, we need EMS, we need police, and we can start with those and then build up from there.
Come April 1st, we may need a lot more.
Exactly.
Yeah,
More
and might as
calls.
well have it certified and ready to go. And that's why I'm looking at, I wanna know the aspect part of these grants that were canceled without our awareness as a commission, and why, and what's the benefit of them, how can we, would that help with the increase of the personnel? And I don't wanna hear these excuses, I wanna hear facts. You
So
understand?
were they canceled from the state or from our department?
No, we didn't apply for them.
Oh, we didn't apply
blew them
for
off.
them, okay,
Uh-huh.
okay,
And so, and that irks me because that
Right.
gives us more money to be able to do more
Exactly.
stuff. The whole idea is to protect the citizens of Tucumcari, provide services in the residents, do all kinds of services that are needed for the safety. And if we do away with those programs, we only have 2 patrolmen running around. And this is a real big geographical, large town.
And you're completely correct in that, some of these, like ODWIs and DWIs, they were beneficial, and they also help offset some of those overtime costs
Yes.
that we're not getting anymore.
Right.
I know, since I've been here, they were minimal, but that doesn't mean that they're not worth it. It doesn't mean that they couldn't become bigger. I don't know that much about them, and I just know that we haven't had.
I know that in the past, we would say a lot of that was covered by this grant and that grant, especially the overtime. And right now, I was looking at the overtime on here, on the police, and it's pretty heavy. And so, because the police department comes directly out of the general fund, and that will help us. And you're talking about potholes and other, maybe we'll have extra money to do one more pothole, So, and.
Otherwise, Mesa Vista.
Yeah, no, well, I don't know, the nursery does pretty good, so, we don't have potholes there because nobody lives there.
Commissioner Villanueva, do you have any things that you would like to see or okay. What about Commissioner Arias? Do you have any ideas or thoughts? I mean, you had the one for the
Commissioners.
commission, right?
Yes, if we can see what that would look like and cutting our salaries and our benefits and seeing if we can just reapply them somewhere else, so to another department or even if my colleagues feel like that would be significant enough. I just kind of, like I said, there's an idea that's kind of been playing in my head for a while and just looking for some feedback, seeing if you guys think that might be something that might be worthwhile or worth exploring.
Mayor?
Well, I'd like to see us get to the zero, but I'd also like to know which departments are overstaffed. I'd like to know which ones you think are.
Well, actually, if you look at I was looking at, because I've been, getting copies of department by department, just to review. there's some departments that are really short-staffed.
Right,
And it's not fair that we're having them do double type of work.
right.
And so and so that would help, and then we keep, and they're very good people, they work hard. And then you have some other departments that are just barely surviving, and then you have others that are okay. But I hardly see anybody overstaffed, but there's some duties, like Commissioner Duplantis says, that can be combined
Right,
because we already have the manpower out there.
Yeah.
And so, and that kind of money, when you're looking at that type of money, you're looking at some big money, you know? When you're looking at somebody's 60,000, that's a lot, you know? That can be good, another patrolman.
Right.
And well, that could be the matching fund for the other programs that we have here. And then bring that money in and we got all these things, but
And we also have to, so I agree with the combining or seeing if there's some department or some job that may be related that they could do. But with that, they're going to want more money because now they're taking on an additional job duty. And
Well,
so
that's
that
where
comes with it. So for example, I'll even say in my department, I have a deputy finance director and she left for her personal reasons. I had told Mark, I don't want to fill it that way again. I want to do it a little bit differently in that, so that my other positions that I'm filling or was filling, that I could offer a little bit more money so that I would get better.
But you also have department, you have one department that the people are doing all kinds of work.
Mhm.
I mean, that are not really for that, I mean, it's kind of like I don't know where it falls. And they're doing from one area to another, and they're really not only double duty, now they're doing triple duty, and that's not fair.
I know.
Because we have to make sure, just because they're in that department doesn't mean that we should make all three, the type of work.
I agree, but I'm just
Yeah, and I understand that
comparing.
we got also the minimum wage coming up, and that's gonna help too.
And so that's the other thing with the minimum wage, going back to, we have, for example, the senior center, they have a part-time van driver, their minimum wage, so they're gonna get bumped up to $11.50. And right now, if we were to hire an EMT basic, they're getting hired at $11.31. So then they're gonna go up to $11.50 and they're making minimum wage and they're certified to save a person's life.
And that's something that the mayor, the manager here was saying they're gonna be looking at, and that's part of the
Yes.
budget we'll be adjusting and working with, and that's why we're looking at where we need, if we need to cut or where we need to expand.
So that's what I'm saying, so when you're thinking about these are the departments to think about, these are the departments to look at and to factor in.
And
Your thoughts.
with this, somebody that wants to demand more money because of a different position, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to, especially in this type of, career, if you want to call it, working for the city and stuff, at the end of the day, it's retirement and benefits.
It is,
And
but
starting over if you walk away.
and it is that, but unfortunately, some people, some individuals need their money now and can't afford that retirement deduction, so they can go work at McDonald's or somewhere else and make the same amount of money. And that's what I'm saying, we have to be careful, because we're either gonna push them
Well, and I'm
out or
not
they're
saying
gonna
cut,
be
if
fined.
they go to work at a different location, I'm not proposing we cut their.
No, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is by telling somebody, okay, so now you're gonna take on this additional responsibility, but we're not gonna give you any more money. That'll save.
Well, that's where we look at what I mean by consolidating. And that's why I was using the police department, because that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head right now. And I'll use my restaurant, just so nobody in the city thinks I'm trying to axe them in a job. I hire a delivery driver. I'm not hiring them to stand around and wait for a delivery. So in the meantime, they can help do some prep cooking to help do dishes. Now, if they just want to do dishes, that's lower pay and they won't get deliveries. But in order to keep a job, they've got to be working the whole time they're there.
Right.
So they're getting paid a delivery driver's pay, which I'm proud of how much I pay my drivers and how much they make. But their job is not to stand around. They're going to either help the servers up front, or they're going to help the cooks in the back until a delivery comes up. And that's what but they're there. They're not doing, it might seem like they're doing an extra job to the lay person looking in the back or who's never been in the restaurant industry, but they're not doing extra stuff.
I know exactly what you're saying, because it's kind of one of my thoughts that I've had for a little while is instead of having, and I'm not picking, what I'm saying is thinking outside the box. So we have cemetery and we have parks and we have recreation and we have street. Can we combine them and call them a grounds crew? And on the grounds crew, somebody oversees them and says, okay, you are gonna go do this park and you're gonna go do that park and you're gonna do these four, you guys are gonna go do potholes or some kind of a schedule, something like that. So it's in the same realm that you're all together. You're not, you're still, like you're saying, you still have a job and it's not really anything above and beyond, but you have something to do on a daily, because cemetery, you may not have any funerals right now. So you're not really needed out there for 8 hours. So we could pull you and have you helping somewhere else. And I know that they've done it. They've been doing it here recently because the parks was short a position. So they've been pulling them and it kind of showed that that could be
Well,
done
that
that way.
comes with what we call, what is it, cross-training. And that's simple.
I call it job security.
Yeah, I think it is.
At the end of the day, that's what it is. And like I said, this is something I think we should explore over the next few weeks. And how cost effective it could be.
Right.
I think it's something like, well, in your position, it's not cost effective to have somebody come over, have you go run and do code enforcement for half a day and then come back to work. That's not cost effective. But there are jobs out there and they're not, they're not bad jobs, but there's some jobs, like I said, they're doing the same thing. They're out there already. And it won't hurt for us to at least explore that and see if we can do a shift, which would help one of the spots that might be short-staffed extremely, or even create somebody where we could hire another staff, and we keep things rolling. But we do have to be proactive with this. Everything coming up, we got some good things about to happen, but on the same note, we got a hurdle we got to overcome.
You better be able to back it up before it starts, yeah, problem.
So anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
So, so the commission knows what I'm going to do is I'm going, because it's an interim budget, I am basically going to submit a basic budget, probably just this flat one right here. And then we can come back and do when we get ready to do the final, we'll have everything where we want it to be.
Because, well, our recommendation needs to be in effect by July the 1st. You know what I mean? If we're gonna be looking at some cutting budget.
July 30th. I have to have my final budget in by July 30th.
I mean, yeah.
So right now, this is
I got
just an
my-
interim and I have to have it in by June 1st.
Yeah,
There's no waiver on that, it has to be in,
Yeah.
so, but it's an interim.
yeah, and that's what we're looking at, you know, I mean, because we need to get that, because that will be the budget for the fiscal year coming up.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the budget?
Good job, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Just to keep in mind, remember, this is a $634,000 deficit without doing anything other than minimum wage, so that has to work we need to lower that number as it stands, and then we gotta factor in how can we reduce some costs in other areas to try to get some of these employees some raises.
Okay.
All right, so next on the agenda is the discussion regarding the recreational marijuana. So Todd, are you in charge of that?
Yes, I want to thank, we've got some people that come in that showed up to the meeting. We had actually a nice little turnout last night, which was officially our first meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to read this.
Yes, go ahead.
Al took some wonderful notes from last night. After it's all said and done, of course, these are just suggestions from our committee. And, but anyway, I'm gonna hit real quick. The biggest thing we're looking at is the zoning. And the reason we want to get this thing rolling, and I apologize, I was gonna see if Ralph or Vicky could be here complaining of zoning, and my mind got tripped up this morning. But if there's a way we can end up getting this to them.
Yes, I can do that also, and I'm gonna scan in a copy to Commissioner Audius, who's asking for a copy.
All right, thank you.
I sent him a text message.
Did you? Does it have this on it?
Yes, same exact one.
But it was agreed upon that we definitely need to get out and get a zoning in place as well as the ordinance, because we got people looking to buy right now, and the last thing we wanna do is set a bad precedent to people that are coming in to buy, and then we're gonna tell them no, because it's not the right area, so, Al came up with a name for C3 and I3, all right? What is C3? It's a commercial zone 3. It's the new recreational cannabis retail zone. It'll be proposed downtown district zone box, and basically it's gonna be Main Street, Adams Street, and Center Street, and Third Street. So it's gonna be, there's a square up in that area. Commissioner Moya had suggested, and we went along with that too, adding this in, going ahead and zone it away from the churches, the daycares and everything, so we don't run into that later, so we're not having to sit up here and vote on somebody trying to get something zoned for this purpose. C3 zone should be zoned for the following. It should be a vertically integrated cannabis establishment and cannabis retailers and small manufacturers. Now, when we say small manufacturers, and this is just as an example, we're talking somebody that wants to grow like 50 plants or less. That's relatively small, and I liken it to somebody that's got a brewery and they got 14 taps, but they've only got one brew in the back, one tank. So they're brewing a special beer that's their niche. Granted, this isn't beer.
And you said they can actually grow.
Well, you know, some of the facilities, they've got small rooms, and it's hydroponics. A lot of it's done hydroponically. And that's why, you know, and this is something we should consider, allowing certain areas to where they can, because it's not an industrial if they're growing 50 plants or less. Because in one of these gas stations, they can actually do over 100 plants if they set it up right. I think that's too much. I think when it gets to that point, this is just me talking, when it gets to that point, we need to move it to the industrial area. But for somebody that just wants to grow their own special bud.
But this is not, we're not talking dispensaries, right?
No, well, the retail part. I think it's something we should consider.
You're still talking C3.
Yes,
We're talking about 3 different licenses.
Yes.
You got the dispensary license, you got the grower's license.
Yes.
And
And
the
if
state
they
of
want
Mexico, the state of Mexico allows you 200 plants on the grower's license. I don't know if we could regulate it.
You don't think we could?
I don't know, because if somebody's gonna, because you know how much a bud produces, not very much, you know.
Mhm. I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I mean,
How do you?
I mean, looking at the numbers, you know, and it's, it wouldn't be profitable for anybody to do very good. It has to be, even the 200 plants are gonna be very small.
Well, you know, if somebody's willing to get a grower's license to grow the 50 plants or less in their dispensary, I'm sure
That's not gonna be a problem.
Well, yeah.
But the other thing is, I was trying to say was, let's define dispensary and growers, because anybody's gonna be a grower, they wanna make profit.
Yes.
And dispensary is not gonna have the room to do that. Because usually dispensary, what you have in a dispensary is, you come in, you get the product. Next site, you have all those things that you used to pop it up with, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then some people usually put like interior shop, other stuff. It's all included in there to increase the revenue.
But there are buildings in town where somebody can actually do a grower's license with 200 plants and have a dispensary upstairs. They've got enough space.
No, I understand.
So, you know, I'm
I
just,
don't, I understand
Yeah.
that part, but the smell, I'm gonna be able to deal with it.
oh, that's where we gotta come up with, you know, I don't know what filters, but I don't, you know, that part, that's just, like I said, we're just doing a proposal right now.
So Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, I don't know if it's appropriate in the setting, have you invited anybody from community development to the little committee meetings?
Well, I was gonna have you see if they can come down to it this one.
The reason I say that, it's obviously a hot topic. The New Mexico League of Planning and Zoning recently had their annual conference virtually, and I know a few of our staff members attended that, and Albuquerque is currently tied up in a lawsuit. They're having to be very careful on how they restrict certain areas and only allow this in certain areas. It may open up a can of worms when it comes to I guess in a way discriminating in certain areas. And we need to be really, really aware of that, because we could end up on the wrong side of the lawsuit. It's happened already in Albuquerque, and
Explain what we're talking about. So if we're saying like our industrial area, what we've talked about was turning that into an I3 area, which would be zoned just for growers. Somebody wants to set a dispensary up there, but since we haven't zoned it, I thought if we put something as a zone, i.e., we make an area we zone as a residential area, somebody tries to open up a private business, is that not the same thing? They can't open a private business there unless they come to the commission.
It's a little bit different. Like I said, there's case law right now that the city of Albuquerque has lost because they were trying to pinpoint certain businesses into certain locations. And in doing so, they have lost one. I think they're in the process of a second lawsuit. So again, I'm bringing it to everyone's attention because
This is the cannabis.
no, it's something else, but it's similar. The thing is, I agree, it's gonna be better for our city if we could strategically steer them to certain locations. We have dilapidated buildings to allow them to fix them up, increase the facade in certain areas. But there's always gonna be that chance that we could be caught up in a lawsuit for trying to push it to a certain area and not allowing it in another.
Well, what we discussed,
This, I think in the state of New Mexico, I think, we gotta look at the regulation that the state of New Mexico legislation put out. And I think in the legislation gives us the authority. I could be mistaken, but because it's still out
Still
there.
new.
Yeah, still in the good anyone's, but the authority of the community to zone it.
Yes.
While you want it for. That, because one of the things that are very clear, you will not prevent it from coming in the community. So let's go ahead with the plan on this, and then we can consult an attorney to make sure that we're doing the right, on the right area. And that attorney should be aware of the new regulations that are supposed to be out pretty quick before about August 15th, all of it. Including the bill that went through the legislature.
and just to be clear, what we were agreeing on last night on the zoning was just taking into effect, because technically a business district, we can go down, stretch it down, but we have some areas where the daycares are at. We got areas where church is gonna be. So to eliminate that, we, I guess strategically, set up some zonings that was gonna, it's already the distance from the churches, it's already the distances from the daycares. It's not right up into a residential neighborhood. So, and that was our first thought process, so we could keep away from running into that later. And with the manufacturing of the dispensary, that's just something that was brought up that, is something, if we can consider it, it's to be considered, of course. I still believe that getting the zoning set up to where these future business people want to come in, have something they can start moving on in a timely manner.
Well, they got actually a plan where they can actually bank solid rather than coming in by a place and say, you're not gonna get on private, you can get lost. And
Yeah.
investment.
Another area that was, that we're looking at for to consider a C3 commercial area is from the convention center to Kmart. There's the house is set back. And again, they're gonna have to take in consideration when there's that gap around Alco all the way to 3rd Street, that they've got to consider that it could fall under what we were looking at as a guidance, the liquor law, because you've got a school and that's a really close area. And even though, which this was brought up last night, even though Granger is not there anymore, that's still school property. So that could still fall under that, and that's got to be considered. Also, South 1st Street and other inner city areas are an alternative for future growth. So in other words, somebody could come to the commission and ask, hey, I want this location up by I-40 on 1st Street, and it's not near residential and all that stuff, and they could come bring it up to us, and we could, look at it and consider it and say yay or nay. Also, we were looking at for the I-3, which is industrial zone, it'd be zoned for the cannabis large manufacturers, the producers, the micro businesses, and the research laboratories. And that's proposed around exit 329 around the old truck terminal and the north side of town. And I believe it was the north side of the tracks is what we're talking about, like the Worley Mills area, the Mercantile area, the part where XL runs. At the truck terminal zones, we're kind of throwing it around. That could actually, one building could be a growing, one could be a dispensary if somebody chose to see that. One good thing about them going hydroponic, we don't have to worry too much about the contaminated ground.
Well, that's what I was saying, that place contaminated that.
in the ground, but hydroponics has done above. And as we found out through all of this, I'm finding out more and more is being grown above the ground. Yeah,
Who's gonna buy the property?
well, that's not my problem. I'm just, but if it's up for offer,
Actually, to be honest with you, a lot of people after 2026, you're gonna see the big money come in.
Yeah.
And that will be ideal for them to invest, because they got the money coming clean.
yes. We also discussed, recommended hours of operation, 7 days a week. You know, really, we don't want to miss out on the tax receipts, and holidays are approved. It was toyed around saying maybe closed on Sundays or closed on, but with the new liquor laws, the legislation coming around, that stuff's not, that's gonna be readily available. So, we really don't wanna, you know, hold back one while the other, you know, we've gotta be fair when it all comes down to it. We also talked about, recommended hours of operation. It shouldn't be a 24-hour business, but, given the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., they don't have to open at 7. That's just the hours that they can open and operate during that time frame. And, we need to keep the restriction on hours of operation will help with employment, which means that businesses would need to hire more staffing for influx of customers in a 15-hour operation window. It could help with law enforcement to where they're not being stretched too thin. Restricted hours could deter criminal activities. Restricted hours can help tax receipts at the opening hour. When we left at the end of the night, we were still discussing a lot about the signage restrictions. I talked to Mr. Lopez today, and I think he had talked to Commissioner Moya. Something we got to consider, and I think my personal recommendation is we wait to see what the state finalizes on what their guidelines are.
But, you know, we don't want, I mean, we don't want these big old pot weeds and everything.
I agree.
And then next door is like a ladies dress shop, and poor lady.
But something I brought to his attention, I was like, well, if the state says that we can't touch the signage, you groom the customers you want. And, you know,
I think the signing is okay, as long as it advertises the business in a nice professional manner. But then to put all these big old Pop Magic Dragon types of cartoons up there, it's not gonna make. But I noticed on the map that you left one area off. I thought Mr. Lucero talked to you on Roosevelt Avenue to 6th Street. What happened to that one? Because you see, you look at the Excel property, they all got a lot of wells and stuff like that. What happened to that recommendation that, it seemed like the group had agreed?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed out on the notes.
Yeah.
Would you like me to go ahead and add that in?
Yeah, because what's his
Yes.
name? Robert Lucero was talking about the wells that are along parallel, what do you call the rural property? And he was talking like Excel has like 4 or 5 water wells there. The next property has
Okay.
2 or 3, and then the next one has some.
Okay.
And what we were saying, that would be for manufacturing, if they were not dispensary, manufacturing.
Manufacturer.
I think that's what Al was meaning by north side of town, because we kept referring to that, we were
Yeah.
saying the north side of the railroad tracks.
North of the railroad.
Yeah, north of the railroad tracks.
No, it was north of Railroad Avenue, Railroad Street, but he put it north of the railroad track, but it's Railroad Avenue, whatever you call that. It's a 400 block.
I still call it Main Street.
It's called 300 to 400, and the 500 block, I think, up to 6th Street.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of wells on there.
Okay.
They can do some kind of, because remember, water's gonna be an asset for the city.
Yes.
Those who have the wells can utilize them, but those who don't have wells can't do any wells in the community.
Now, and then the last thing that we went through, and is still up for discussion, is do we wanna, the C3 and I3 local business licensing fees? And somebody brought up, it's not on here, but are we even considering restrictions? You know, so many of them. Are we looking at, we're only gonna do so many, or are we just gonna open the gates? I personally, if we open the gates, I can tell you in about 12 months, it's gonna balance itself out.
Right.
You know, in the meantime, we can collect some revenue from it, you know, through GRT.
Mayor Pro Tem, so I have a few different comments on the signage as well as going to the number of dispensaries. first things first, I'm glad we're being proactive. The second thing is we may have to readjust and call an audible in the middle of this because, again, like you said, we're still waiting for the state regulations. I did have the opportunity to speak to a gentleman that is well versed and knows the business in and out. Some of the things that he pointed out that it kind of stuck with me, and I think we need to think about this is, if we are able to, we might want to consider capping the amount of dispensaries so we don't have them cannibalizing each other and oversaturating the market. The other thing when it comes to signage, based on his expertise in Colorado, there's actually pretty strict guidelines when it comes to advertising on billboards digitally across all different platforms, so we need to be aware of that. But if it is allowed with signage, it's something that we need to be aware of. From my experience back at planning and zoning, there's also some lawsuits that always goes back to this "You Happy World" as far as freedom of speech. So we have to be aware of those things, again, not trying to be pessimistic, just bringing everything out on the table.
So that's why I was saying that on something, the signage, we need to wait to see what the guidelines are gonna come
And
out.
what the attorney, our attorney had, we haven't thought of it. Because when I went to Colorado, there was no, I mean, I was down.
It was green, you have the green plus
And they were
sign.
real nice, signs. You might have, like you do, the name of the business. But that's about it. You didn't have this big old, cartoons or anything, on the ugly build, making the building uglier than it already was, And it was real nice, and they had good architect. I think one had really nice, woodwork, and as well as kind of old fashioned saloon type thing.
Yeah.
But good.
I think whatever if the state sends out a particular guideline on that, I think that's the one we should follow. So if there happens, if we miss something or misread something, the lawsuit goes to them and not us. We're just doing what was laid out from the state
But
on
one
that.
of the things is, in advertisement, I know that, one of the things that happened back in the 70s and 60s, Lady Bird Johnson sued because of the huge amount of billboards along it's called the Lady Bird Act. And they were able to regulate it and do away with just anybody plopping signs up and everything. So that's one that I can think of that might help us in controlling some of the way the signing is. Because what had happened was there were so many billboards that he had taken all the scenery away. And so then now that's why it's so restricted to get billboards up.
And I think that's something we could do similar to our 66 overlay zone. There's specific design standards that I know they're highly recommended. Sometimes you have to be careful on forcing someone into that, but to try to keep the true character consistency throughout there. If it's Main Street, we want it to look a certain way. If it's 66, we want a certain way. If they are allowed signage, if it's tasteful, maybe we go and make them, it has to be a neon sign of some sort. We could formulate that. That's where we have to do our part and make sure we execute on that.
And actually, this is up long enough that if there's any people that want to bring it up and change things, we have the opportunity. This is just a draft.
Well, we do have some of our members and others, if they like to, is it all right if we invite them to say something and their opinions? Mr. Lake, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you.
At your closing.
Like I said yesterday, we want to put one south of I-40. But we're in a commercial zone. But people are only allowed to buy so much a day. So if you limit to these areas, they're probably not even going to stop here. If you get them to stop, they're only allowed to buy so much. They'll probably buy every one. So that's going to create more GRTs for Tucumcari carry. And if you cap it and you hold some, and you're just hurting yourself if you don't allow them to.
For those that don't know, they're only gonna be allowed to buy 2 ounces at each place.
Okay.
So if they're driving 100, 200 miles, they're not coming for 2 ounces. So you can almost bet that it's gonna be,
But that's not including the candy is that including?
all I know is they're only allowed to buy 2
I don't
No,
know.
but you can go down to another dispensary.
Yes, you can go to another dispensary.
Get your
So that's what Leif is getting at is
Yeah.
he'd be right off the interstate. So if
Right.
they stop in and they're like, well, where can I go to get some more? Hey, you go straight down this way and they can, almost do like the motorcyclists that used to do in the day and like
Right.
maybe last
I
week.
know there is a company looking across from his land. And that land does have the infrastructure. They have the sewer water in that area, when we get the extension up in that area. And they already checked into the infrastructure, so that's what they're looking at.
That's another important factor. I'm glad you bring that up. I was thinking of that earlier. We need to make sure we have the water and wastewater infrastructure in the area to handle these things.
And my other thing is, Colorado probably never thought Tucumcari or New Mexico would become legal. So now they're gonna be struggling because they're not gonna be coming from from New Mexico to Colorado. We're gonna be getting them from Texas. So Texas is gonna open it up in a few years probably. So you wanna make as much as you can.
They're the Bible down there.
Yeah, they're pretty strict in Texas.
I thought that they literally want to go on the grid.
Well, what they say and what they do are two different things.
Yeah.
I want to tell you.
I
I know that for a fact.
So that's why I'm asking to consider south
Right.
of I-40 on First Street right there. To include that in.
And this is all good stuff, it's all planning, and actually that's why we looked at the alternative stuff first, because it's all in the planning area, and we wanna make we wanna get our best, the best we can for everybody, so the city can benefit. That's what we're looking at. Our budget, if you look at our budget, we're talking about it, this will really help our revenue, our GR. And the whole deal is, actually, the guy I brought to consult with me kind of taught me how to invest in a lot of this stuff. So I don't know, because he was very realistic with me on it. But he's saying that they come in, they'll buy the 2 ounces or whatever, then they go to the
next one.
paraphernalia thing you have next door. They'll buy something there, they go to McDonald's, buy something to eat. Or if you have Mexican food downtown, they come and eat, because they make it a day event. That's what they do up in
Trinidad.
Yeah, and because so you look at all that, and not only that, you got traffic in some of these areas now. You got traffic, where people are saying, they got, like, for example, when I went to Denver, I didn't even know this thing was cigars. I thought they were all history. And they have like a cigar thing where you go in and buy all kinds of weird cigars and pipes and everything next door. And so it's kind of interesting that one industry helps the other industry. So all in all, if we play it right, we might be able to help Tucumcari finally get a foot on something worthwhile. I mean, we got a lot of good industry, don't get me wrong, but I mean, something that will help us.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though it's all, everybody has it, so what's the difference, you know? I mean, the only thing that they have been noticing in the national thing to the legalization of marijuana is the fact is that the cartels are no longer messing with marijuana that much, and a little bit.
No money in it.
Yeah, there's no money for them anymore. Which now, at least in the United States, keep the money.
Okay. Lyle, do you have anything to contribute to this conversation? I know you weren't at the meeting last night.
I didn't even know about it.
Well, it was a task force meeting for cannabis.
She's on
I
it.
would
bomb?
be interested.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, she's on it.
And see, Matt he didn't come
And
because
no,
he had.
I
Yeah, I
didn't
knew
know
about
a thing
that.
about it until you guys just mentioned it now.
This is the first I heard that you were on it.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry that you didn't get the message.
Probably
We would love to have.
We apologize.
Okay.
I sent out a message to all the commissioners
Right.
to let their representatives.
And what we ought to do is maybe just give you their phone numbers or something and maybe.
Yeah,
if-
that'll work.
then you
Okay.
can
God
just
has
let
my
them
phone
know.
number.
Because you sent me a message, but I was so busy, I didn't read it. It wasn't until one of the guys I appointed said, how come they're not letting us go? And I said, I don't know. And then I looked at the message.
He did.
And I go, I better call him and say, you can go.
We'll let you know the next one.
Just so you know, Dawn at the Blue Swallow would be interested in this too.
Okay, and this is actually, we kind of actually had it more as an open meeting because we had more people show up that weren't considered representatives, but it was great to have, the more people show up, that's what we need.
Well, personally, I think this whole thing, we can get it to work, is gonna be good for the town all the way around. As for Texas, the owner of the Palomino is from Texas. He's in with some of the big shots, and they have no intentions of doing this over there. And they think we're all crazy.
Well, wait till we pave our streets and they don't.
So, just so you know, because I've already talked to him, and he agrees. One of the things he did bring up, in this areas that we're growing the pot, they have a pot plant by his brother in Oregon or Washington, where he lives, and he says there's a few weeks where the smell is really bad. So you might.
Everybody's real happy.
So, well, I'll be avoiding the place, but I still think this is a good idea. Oh my God, people have been smoking pot since I've been in high school, and I ain't telling nobody how old I am. But it's just there, and I think it's better than even alcohol.
Ms. Loveland, did you
Yeah,
wanna?
I have a question. So we've been working really hard to get the mixed use zoning overlay downtown. If we zone that C3, how is that gonna affect the mixed use zoning?
What do you mean mixed use?
No, you got already
Residential
other zoning,
upstairs.
so it's not gonna rule them out. It just, then now it qualifies for C3.
So is it cleaner to maybe have an overlay zone instead of actually a whole new zoning area?
You don't really know.
So you could create overlay zones where there's certain restrictions and rules and regulations in certain areas without having to create a whole new zoning district.
I know, Ms. Lovelace, that I had two people who have buildings downtown talk to me about wanting to do a dispensary. And they're abandoned buildings that you have down there.
I didn't hear the last part of your question.
And they're abandoned buildings down there.
Right, yeah, no, I think it's great that we're gonna do that. I would like to make sure that we have some design standards in place, and some signage standards. We wanna make sure we're preserving the historic value of things downtown. But I am curious how that will affect the mixed use zoning, if there's anything we need to
We
do.
might have to work with that and make sure that we cover it so that your program and the historical value downtown is not destroyed in many ways, but at the same time, we also need to benefit from the abandonment, and we don't want it to dilapidate it because we really value our settlement downtown.
I think for now, that's all I have, and if you'll just put me on the list for next time you have a meeting, please.
No problem.
I hope we can work with the task force on this, to make sure you get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy.
We had to kind of really spur the moment, one, because I'm getting ready to go on vacation, and I want to have a meeting started so we can get things rolling. Ms. Duplantis, did you want to add? Ms. Mom?
Yes.
I try to be professional.
Yeah, Mom right now would be a little off. We also discussed last night, and I think it's very important, we remember some of the issues we had when we talked about the Racino. There's gonna be those people who are gonna be very negative. There's gonna be those that really want it, and then you're gonna have those in the middle. If we could use some of that information we have of the things that we're concerned about bringing something into town that not everybody agrees on, and approach it before it hits us with good, I call it marketing, making sure the word is out there of what we're doing to prevent some of the things that people were concerned about with the Racino. Being proactive in that area. Everything else we're talking about is very important. But if you don't take care of this, we're gonna have a lot of issues. We've discussed that last night because we all know how people felt and they wanted to be heard. So if you address it before it becomes a big issue, we're gonna avoid a lot of contention and more likely bring people on board. Not that because they agree with it, but because we have no choice in what's going on as far as the state level. We're just trying to take advantage of an opportunity that's come our way and to do it proactively where we're covering all bases. But if you don't deal with the people, we're gonna have some issues. So that's just a thought we talked about last night, and people have feedback. It'd be great if we could just pull some of that information we had from the Racino, and I bet you that Warren has some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
It's
you.
a good idea because,
Oh, yeah.
when I got in the council in the 80s, there were still people that used to remember, at a point where they were trying to bring in some sort of an airport or thing in the university. And because people at that thought that they already had enough industry and they didn't want this type of people in here, we winded up with those industries going somewhere else.
Well, we don't want to have misinformation out
Yeah,
there.
and low
Creating
income
issues.
misinformation. And the other communities that blossom over those, and we did.
Right. And I think this is one of those times we've been waiting and waiting, and I'm not for it or against it as far as if it's a state law. I think let's be smart about it and take advantage of the opportunity we're given, but do it wisely. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you.
That's a good suggestion. Yes.
Anybody else that I missed? Bob?
I think my bride covered it.
Okay, anything else you want to add?
No, I put my 2 cents in.
No, other than Al said he's gonna correct what Robert
Yes.
Chavez wanted, and that would help. That's what we're trying to do a lot is, and one of my goals is, and I don't really, like I said, the consultant I brought me kind of talked me out of whatever the craziness I had, but the thing that we want to be able to do is be able to actually utilize areas that are depressed so that we can actually, some of these buildings don't wind up collapsing. Also activate where there can be some activity in the area where now no business is happening, and the more traffic you get, the more you recruit. So this is why we're trying to zone the area that we're doing, hoping that, because for years and years, we kept crying, what are we gonna do, That's why we have so much abandoned property, and people not even paying their taxes, the mortgage, and even, up and down the boulevard, there's several buildings, because there's no money in it. And if we can help renovate or restore some of that area, it would help everybody on the long run, including the city, because we don't have to go cut the weeds.
It was brought up about the saturation, all the people coming in. If you look at it a different light, and one is, okay, people come in, they're gonna buy some buildings, or they're gonna build something. And if they buy one of these old dilapidated buildings and they put the energy in to make it presentable, and they don't survive 6 months after they open, at least we don't have a dilapidated building.
But we have an upgraded building.
We have an upgraded building, one that has a better chance of selling than what they are now. And that's kind of, I don't want one every other block, but, like I said, in a year, I can tell you right now, in a year, it's gonna start thinning out, and then the ones that actually did their business is gonna do good. And Commissioner Moyer brought up a good point, that could happen in 2026. You get some of these people that open up the little small, I hate to say mom and pop shop, but a mom and pop shop, and they show that they can survive here. When the bigger companies come in, they have a better chance at making enough money to retire by selling their property to those individuals.
And usually the franchise will come in, and they'll buy you out because you already have an established business. And it's a perfect time for you to get your investment out of your property. For those who want to, not every, it's in America, and you can do what you want.
Yeah.
But it gives that person the opportunity to do something with the property that is considered to be kind of dead,
Yeah. But that's where we were at. That's our update.
Sounds good.
It looks like overall, even though we have some negatives, and we can focus on the negative, overall, it's gonna be a win-win situation for two carriers, because we're not going, it's real solid.
But in reality, we have to be ready to address the negative too.
Yes,
You know,
well, and last
let
night,
it
the
go.
first thing we stated in the meeting was, this isn't a for or against a meeting.
Right.
It's what can we do to make this happen and happen to our benefit, and how we can control it to where it doesn't desecrate Tucumcari.
Yeah.
So, we can debate all day with somebody, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be here.
Yeah, we have no say. It's actually in the state we have.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we have a little bit of time left here. So Mark, you want to address discussing regarding repealing section 708-30 abatement in ordinance?
I think that was accidentally duplicated, so it's carried over from last.
It was
Oh, okay.
already addressed on the.
Well, I thought we had, but that's why I put a question mark by it, but I thought, well, maybe you had something else you wanted to add.
No, ma'am. I'm good
Okay.
on that
So
subject.
we're through with that.
I think we're getting ready for the first reading next time.
Yeah. Okay, so, I guess we're adjourned until 6 o'clock.
That's good. We actually did a little break in between.
Yeah, everybody go, pardon?
Orders.
I'm gonna leave the go-to meeting on live. I'm just going to leave the mic until we start at 6.
Okay.
Meet you.
How are you? Good to see you. Yeah, I have been, but I got back on Tuesday night.
I'll be right there.
I'm from Dallas. This is Dallas. No, so last year I graduated from high school. Wednesday night. Over, I can look to my
Good, wife got promoted, so she will start as the next school year, so she just finished.
Hi.
So, I was very happy. Long story short, I already let's say she started at Tennessee, then like Tennessee, when she got there, then she did all the legwork and she moved herself to Appalachian State. Much better.
Young lady. University of Tennessee. Is that what they are? And she, I told her, her mother, she and my daughter were best friends growing up. Okay. So they were living on the outside.
Kyla doesn't have the personality of herself. It's more like a mom.
That's all
However, the next one,
The next one, I might be by phone, so if you want to. We need to have one.
I can call when I work with this, they might go out there on a regular basis. I can go out there and work. Be like, I'm there for Likewise, have you got any right?
Yeah.
Mark,
Yes,
they were super nice. They apologized last year also.
It's also.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. Yes, who's coming right down, right? That'd be great. So I've been right just ready for them. So that when they come through, they can see class and stuff.
Yeah, like you.
That'll be fun.
Good, good.
It's good to see you.
Yes, always.
It might not, hell, it might have been you, I don't know. Oh, really?
Funny, Friday.
It's too willing.
Fantastic. My youngest granddaughter graduated from high school. I saw that. I'm a freshman. She is teaching over that, so she has. Well, next Tuesday. So Kim met her on.
Really?
Because she's like, I keep saying it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday. And so Kim met her.
He did a regular one, or?
We don't have one regular, but it's the one we talked about.
So I got.
It's my first.
Anybody else there, except for Kim. These are great grandbabies, so it got to her when I walked by her.
I'm glad you.
How's your bride?
So, what's her name? Her name is Eliana Grace. That's pretty name, call her Ellie. Yeah, it does. And he's so.
I think that'll help a lot.
And I'm in the same situation as your daughter.
Yeah.
So 16 months apart.
That'll make something say.
Yeah, sure. 18 months apart.
And one day, I had two kids that were 13
Say, when I was in high
months apart. To
school.
this day, they're in their high 40s, and they are just today when they were.
Well, they had such a hard time.
I tried it a few times and screwed in on it.
Fertility, all kinds of stuff. And so
Yeah, so
I get pregnant.
I did it. Tried it. Didn't like it.
Hey, how are you?
One of the beasts out there, but it's proper now, I think it's all right. Hello.
Hi. How are ya?
How are you?
I'm
You got all the roads between.
So,
So they're gonna have another one before, I guess, like at 18 months.
Yeah, it'll be a year in September, and this one's due in December, so. Oh, but it makes sense.
So when's your grandbaby gonna be due?
Oh, the new one? Well, I'm already grandma.
I am too, but.
So you know we're in 5.
I got 13
Wish
grandchildren.
I put it.
This is my great grandbaby.
Yeah.
These are my
Wow.
great, yeah.
Like you?
I've got.
3 times.
Hi, hi, bye. Hello.
How are you? How are you? Running? Feel like I'm running late.
Oh, nice seeing you, man. That's Roquito. It's coming back down. I lost.
I always get so nervous that this question's not gonna work. It just scares me
I
to
got
death.
down to.
I don't know why I get so nervous.
Put that 180. Get rid of it. I love Mr. Birch. Have you seen him? Yeah, I went up.
Yeah.
Well, I went up to town.
Oh. How'd it go?
He went through all that, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Granddaughter.
You know, when I ask questions.
It's been a while on that one. Gets cold. And I used to see this place all the time, and now I don't see it anymore. And I don't even stop in the morning, she's staying pretty close.
Brian Elster, how do I actually tell Al to quit clicking? But I'm gonna have to. Is it every time he's digit? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm gonna talk to yours before he gets started.
All the mics and stuff or
And he says, I'd like to be.
batteries and stuff in them and
Yeah.
I'm not just sitting here just waiting.
We needed a little break.
Yeah, okay, it's just me and Lala with new, I mean, he did well with Russell the last commission meeting, I'm assuming, so.
So my dad and we just went with that. So he said,
I told Robert, I said, he's cooking dinner tonight right now, so.
call him, tell him you're bringing a friend.
Yeah. Say it happens.
Linda Cosner and I had lunch today, and I had a huge lunch. She said something about. She said, I've never seen you eat that much lunch, because I don't get dinner tonight. Because I don't eat after, there's no way I can eat at 8 o'clock when I go home.
Yeah, see, we really do, and I can't eat anymore, that I can't eat that much that late.
Usually for supper, and I'd rather have a large lunch, and then eat dinner, just have like maybe cheese and crackers or something. But, so this would be settled before I go to bed.
Right.
I enjoyed it. It
It
was very nice. So does it,
No more.
so you guys see since you've been gone
I know.
forever, let's see if I can.
What's everybody doing here?
Let me introduce myself. I don't think your card's not an idea. I saw you on Facebook.
Let's get on marijuana.
That's how I
Let's
do
talk
it.
about this.
I'm live, I run the family.
Oh, okay, I didn't even look at the agenda.
It's over.
Yeah, I thought that's who you were when I saw you. But
I know, it was a long.
yes, I'm glad you finally
Unless
came
we're
through. Sitting here, I'm glad you did. Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Hey, you know what,
It takes
bro?
time and.
I like a picture of you and your dad on Facebook.
What did so long?
Thank you. I miss him
Yeah.
Wall.
big time.
Yeah, we used to visit
The
pretty good.
concrete wall around where those storage units are.
Yeah, good old guy. And I don't know, I haven't confirmed this, but I guess Richard Taylor
Getting it there, but.
passed away.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, and my sister's my deathbed right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She's Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I got a running sign up there, and then I went with the neon rollers and the
Bed.
neon chases. I gotta
I don't know if
replace
that
some of the
railed
neon
over or what, but
chases
she
because
fell
I
out.
had thunderstorm.
Dear.
It started them out, so I gotta.
Oh,
put
no.
them up there.
And her shoulder.
I tried to get some of
And
the.
you got hit her head going down.
This one,
And now
oh, they
she's
told me they
got
would have to
brain
take the
bleeding,
sun
so
away.
they're not gonna.
And I looked at him, he said, you're looking at 180.
Keeping her sedated, you know.
I'm so sorry.
till the end. Well, I'm-
It's, I understand.
So, I
Yeah.
decided to go on.
You know, Rick and my dad both grew up in Elida,
Yeah.
so there's kind of an Elida connection right there. It's like,
So.
Lord, I used to make that run in 2 weeks, and go through a line and hit Austin.
Yeah.
You know?
well, I used to get soda pop and put Pepsi, or not Pepsi, peanuts in the bottles when I was a little kid over there. There's someone trying to call
You
us.
too, I have to go eat.
Yeah, my dad used to-
And then you better go take care of
feeling
it.
Peanuts and gold.
I-
How you doing?
I'm doing good, how are
Give me
you?
some of the, fill those shoes.
All day, 30.
30. I haven't seen you, I'd be blessed, but it's like the last time.
Ah,
What's going on?
It's nice to see you guys.
I was gonna have him run me home. 'Cause I gotta eat something.
Oh, see, better take care of those, if she's got them.
Hey,
I'll
hey,
go.
Lalo,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Alrighty,
Can
sir.
you hear me?
you later. Thank you.
Okay. It's
I
gonna be
do.
about 10 minutes, but, I'll probably do a mic check in about 5, if I can get somebody to do a mic check.
Yeah, I gotta go talk to
So
you.
make sure you listen for me, okay? Thank you.
Is that who you work for?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Well, I just told them.
Oh, hello. How are you? You smell good.
Oh, thank you.
As far as I know.
We'll make it good.
I tried.
Well, you have to make it.
No, it's not.
I got up this morning.
We made it through some difficult times, didn't we?
The last couple of years has been that way. Since we've retired, it's not what we expected. So for us, so everybody's happy. Still ongoing. I gotta go say hi to them.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Oh, is that the window washer?
That's right.
How are you doing?
I was like.
Find an opportunity to,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I went to get the shot, not to protect everybody that came into the hotel. I don't think so. So I can protect them.
I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna do it.
I was in my mask. People don't know what they're doing. It's gonna be sad.
I know it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Take care of yourself.
I've been told that, you know, calm down, that wasn't it.
Thank you.
You have a great weekend.
I hope to.
Yeah.
Well, what do we do? Take a deep breath and.
I need to sign up to talk. Where do we do
Are you
that?
gonna talk? Okay.
Yeah.
So Paul, when you get over there and do a mic, get your mic, I'd like to do a mic check with Lalo, the board. Jose,
I'm doing great.
Jose, Joseph. He's probably laughing. Can you hear me? I'm saying your name. Yeah, I'm spelling Paul your name. Yeah, you're Lalo, or Jose, or Joseph.
Pretty well, you? Good. We were watching you.
So we're gonna do a mic check here in a second, okay?
Oh, okay.
We're gonna do it with Paul Villanueva. He's one of our commissioners.
Just be quick.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much any time. Oh, it's great. Good. Hop on by, take a look.
Maybe Angelica will do it too for us.
Yeah, well, I'll be there again right after this meeting. And I'll probably turn it up when I get back.
Hello.
Yeah, I turn it on.
Yeah, can you hear her?
Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't, but
Hola.
I didn't know you were using it.
Lalo, can you hear her?
as soon as the sun goes down, it cools off, you know, so.
You still riding?
Lalo,
I haven't been.
I haven't either. I don't know. Yeah, me too.
a little bit far.
Stay above Marshall.
Can't get any closer than this.
Way too close, there you go. Is that better? Is that better?
You bet.
These are not, okay. All right, just wait for the.
Gracias, Lalo.
One of these times, I'm gonna have him come run this so he can meet everybody and know what's going on.
Yeah, I want you to talk.
That's right. Little bit. You and my brother together.
Or did they? Patches.
He's doing good.
And I thought they'd go in. But it's in a day or so. They didn't right over it, so. They added a 1.5 inch layer, but here they have a 1.5 inch gap. But at least they're. Amy, how are you?
Hey Lila, how are you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's what you were saying,
I
yeah.
told a story about you the other day.
You did.
Yeah, yeah.
What you told me one time.
Good, good, glad to have you.
That I'm smarter than I look.
Yo, a lot of us is.
It's the road for staying.
Well, I have to put this on around people that being really sick and I get this.
There are a lot of cars, but not very many people. This place is really bad.
It's in the brand, so it's good.
I know.
You're in trouble, Al.
What's that? Yes, I did your wife. She said, yeah, you can get a haircut.
That's what he said last week.
She, grandkids loved it, but I was getting a little bit too wild there. Oh, Nina liked it, but it's, I've been working outside here a lot and it just goes like this.
There you go. Right, the next one I'm driving tomorrow, but you make it too first.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
Good, how you doing?
No, we're.
I'm hopefully laughed you or something like laughing.
Well,
Your friends left. Your friends left.
What friends?
The ones that lived there across the shore.
I only met her one time.
Now that you got the
Yeah, they moved.
That was a nice, I mean, they were doing really nice work to the house.
Yeah, my bird.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty nice. I mean, it had a lot of,
The attorneys have done a lot of work.
well, they still had a lot of work to do, but what they,
how are you?
Good.
yeah, I remember her. Crap.
And then she came next one. They
I
kind of.
think she jumped in the car with
Tommy,
Oh.
was after Miss McMurray left it, there were 1,000 cats there.
Oh.
She could see them that way.
Oh.
I didn't really know her. I just met her that one night. That was it, so.
Miss McMurray was really everybody.
I don't think I lived here then.
No, she was a school teacher. She made me mad, I locked her in her. Yeah. Remember? Yeah, they had the big story.
What school?
Middle school.
It was 3-story?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's, where they built a new middle school.
I didn't realize it was a 3-story.
It was 3 stories.
You know, I remember my father-in-law telling stories about the school that he went to at the church.
Yeah.
And he jumped out the window because a nun was,
Yeah, they beat up.
yeah, hitting on him.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me go down.
You did what now?
And my dad said, you're right. And that was for catechism only.
You can't, your mom goes like that? Is that how she does?
She goes, you just said it.
I got to rewind. Yeah, well,
And got that.
my son, like, came on.
I want to thank you.
Hi, Clara.
Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you? Good. Still nothing on when you're gonna open?
Getting closer,
Okay.
but no,
Yeah, so what's the parameters?
we have to see what happens, right? Because our county might be changing colors again.
Oh, don't tell me that.
That's
what I hear. June 2nd?
I didn't see that.
I don't know how true it is, but according to the news, the Albuquerque News,
ALB? Or-
4th?
Okay, I'll look.
When I look at your point.
Hey, Mr. Mark. Uh-oh. I said some bad things. You better delete that shit.
I said, I'm gonna